The galaxy had seen countless wars, but none carried the cold efficiency of the extermination that fell upon Earth. To the Empire, humanity was a resource to be stripped, a species too dangerous in its unpredictability, too stubborn in its survival to be permitted a place among the stars. The decision came not from fear but arrogance. The High Council of the Galactic Empire regarded humans as pests that multiplied in chaos and thrived in adversity, and so their judgment was final. Earth was sentenced to death, and its people to annihilation. The extermination fleets descended in silence, no warning, no declaration. In a span of days, 7 billion voices were silenced. Cities burned, oceans boiled, skies blackened with ash. No corner of the world was spared. Satellites were shattered, orbital defenses torn apart like fragile toys. Children, mothers, fathers, erased without pause, their final screams lost to the void. The Empire broadcast no justification, only efficiency. Entire continents were sterilized from orbit, oceans seeded with nanite clouds that devoured biomass into gray sludge. Human survivors scattered in bunkers, suboceanic vaults, and experimental colonies beyond Earth's orbit. Most died within days. The survivors who remained carried memories scorched into their souls, loved ones incinerated, civilizations reduced to rubble, history ended in the blink of an empire's command. Yet in the ashes of extinction, something ancient stirred. Humanity had faced death before, plagues, wars, disasters, genocides, and each time emerged not weaker, but sharper, more relentless. Where other species submitted, humans adapted. Where others broke, humans bent, and then struck back. The Empire understood power, technology, dominance. It did not understand the irrational force of human defiance. Deep beneath the shattered Earth, in bunkers built not for war but for survival, survivors began to whisper. The numbers were pitiful compared to the billions lost, yet the whispers grew into vows. Vows hardened into doctrine. They would not forgive. They would not plead. They would return, and when they did, the galaxy would weep as Earth had wept. The Empire believed extermination complete. Their fleets departed, leaving the planet a scorched monument to imperial efficiency. To them, humanity was history, a failed experiment in civilization. But fragments of the species endured. Orbital stations cut off from Earth refused to power down, operating in shadows. Mars colonies, thought destroyed, still had hidden bunkers with breath and fire within them. Refugees fleeing in cargo ships vanished into asteroid belts, hiding in silence, breeding vengeance in the dark. It was in those fragments that Operation Alien Extinction was born. A name whispered first in anger, then etched in plans, then carved into steel. Engineers scavenged imperial wreckage, reverse engineering technology far beyond Earth's primitive arsenal. Scientists who had once dreamed of curing diseases now designed plagues for alien biology. Artificial intelligence, once constrained by ethical boundaries, was unleashed with only one directive: ensure humanity's survival by any means. Soldiers who had lost everything submitted themselves to enhancements, surgeries, augmentations, turning grief into weapons. The operation was not commanded by generals nor presidents. Those figures had been annihilated with their nations. What rose instead was a collective council of survivors, scientists, engineers, warriors, strategists, bound not by ideology but vengeance. No oaths to nations, no allegiance to borders. Only a singular, uncompromising purpose: to make the galaxy bleed as humanity had bled. For the Empire, extermination was an act of control. For humans, survival became an act of transformation. They did not rebuild cities or monuments. They rebuilt war. Shipyards hidden in asteroid shadows churned out vessels that were neither alien nor human, but an amalgam of stolen parts and desperate invention. Weapons never meant to exist were forged: biomechanical torpedoes, AI-driven swarms, gravity-lensed cannons built from collapsed star remnants. Humanity's weakness was never resources or numbers. It was time. And in extinction, they found patience. Whispers of survival reached alien ears. Merchant fleets reported phantom signals in systems thought barren. Patrols disappeared near ruins. Entire mining colonies went silent. At first, the Empire dismissed these as anomalies, the galaxy's natural chaos. But some remembered the humans. Some remembered their defiance. Rumors spread in shadowed corners of alien marketplaces. They are not gone. What made humans terrifying was not their strength, but their persistence. Even in extinction, they plotted, adapted, endured. An empire that spanned 1,000 species, 1,000 worlds, underestimated the one that had clawed itself up from fire and ice, predators and famine, endless cycles of self-inflicted war. Humans were born in struggle, and struggle was the only inheritance they could not lose. In darkness, survivors recounted their history not as culture, but as lessons. Tales of soldiers who fought against hopeless odds, of revolutions that defied empires, of explorers who sailed oceans knowing death awaited. Children born in the ruins were taught not lullabies but strategies. They learned of wars where fewer faced many and triumphed. They learned that fear was a weapon sharper than any blade. They learned that the galaxy's greatest mistake was believing 7 billion deaths would erase humanity. Operation Alien Extinction grew in silence. It was not fueled by desperation but certainty. Humanity did not seek survival alone. They sought revenge, and revenge became religion. Where other species built temples, humans built armories. Where others sought mercy, humans sought annihilation. The first prototypes were monsters. Ships that screamed as they warped, drones that devoured fleets and each other, viruses that turned alien DNA into ash. None were discarded. None were considered too cruel. Morality had been burned away with Earth. What remained was the cold calculus of vengeance. Years passed in hidden shadows. Colonies once on the brink of collapse became strongholds. The survivors learned to manipulate imperial networks, infiltrating communications, studying military doctrines, memorizing the weaknesses of their executioners. They struck not yet with weapons, but with silence, allowing fear to ferment. Aliens who whispered of humans were silenced by their own governments, for to admit survival was to admit weakness. Yet the whispers persisted, carried across stars. The dead are not dead. They are waiting. The Empire could not imagine what was coming. They had measured humanity in numbers, in ships, in weapons. They never measured them in rage. Rage was not quantifiable. Rage was not predictable. Rage endured when all else died. The survivors knew they were few, perhaps only millions where billions once stood. But they also knew this. One human was never one. One human was invention, defiance, fury multiplied. One human was a mirror to 1,000 ancestors who had clawed through extinction events before. If 7 billion had perished, then the strength of 7 billion raged within the few who remained. From the silence of extinction, a voice rose. It did not speak to aliens. It spoke to the survivors. We were erased. Now we erase. We were silenced. Now we speak in fire. We were hunted. Now we hunt. The galaxy thought humanity ended. Humanity decided the galaxy would follow. The first strikes came without warning, silent as the void itself. Entire alien patrol fleets vanished from the edges of imperial space, their last transmissions filled with static and brief, incomprehensible screams. To the Empire, it seemed at first like cosmic accidents, anomalies born of gravity wells or pirate interference. But soon the pattern sharpened. Not random, not chaotic, but precise. Every fleet destroyed was one that had participated in Earth's execution. Every outpost erased was one that had celebrated humanity's fall. The dead had learned to aim. When the truth was whispered into imperial halls, it spread like poison. Humans survived. 3 words, dismissed, silenced, but repeated in shadows until they became undeniable. Captains who fought them in the final extermination now reported impossible encounters, ships built from scavenged wreckage, guided by artificial intelligence, weaponry both alien and disturbingly new. These were not the desperate survivors the Empire imagined. These were predators. The first planetary strike was an agricultural world that fed a dozen alien colonies. Sensors registered no incoming fleet, no warp signatures, no warning. Then the sky split open as orbital bombardments rained down, not to claim territory, but to erase life. Crops turned to ash, oceans boiled, cities crumbled, and when the screams reached Imperial command, they carried with them a human broadcast: 7 billion gone. Balance restored. The message was cold, devoid of triumph, a verdict handed down by ghosts. Terror spread faster than Imperial propaganda could contain. Civilians whispered of the return of the species that could not die. Merchants abandoned trade routes that brushed too close to Earth's ruins. Soldiers hesitated when ordered into sectors where human shadows lingered. The Empire deployed fleets to hunt these insurgents, but each encounter ended in humiliation. Humans did not fight for territory or resources. They fought for memory, and memory required only destruction. What the Empire could not comprehend was the way humans waged war. Aliens fought by doctrine, fleets arranged in perfect formations, strategies calculated by probability. Humans broke probability. They appeared where no fleet should appear, struck with weapons that should not exist, and vanished before counterattack could arrive. Imperial admirals found themselves unable to predict, unable to adapt. Against the Empire's order, humans wielded chaos, and chaos devoured order with hunger. A convoy of warships once boasted impenetrable shields tuned against plasma bombardment. Humans infected them with a code, a whisper in the ship's own systems that turned shields into weapons against their hosts. The vessels tore themselves apart, and as the wreckage burned, human signals played recordings of Earth's last hours, the wails of billions overlaid with the promise: every cry will be returned to you. The Empire civilians began to see the humans not as prey that survived, but as predators that evolved. Rumors called them wraiths, phantoms, revenants of extinction. Some believed they had transcended mortality itself, become something beyond flesh and blood. Entire colonies rioted when news spread of human retaliation, terrified that vengeance would reach them next. The panic did not need proof. Fear was enough, and humanity wielded fear as their sharpest weapon. The survivors of Earth no longer fought for survival alone. They expanded Operation Alien Extinction into a campaign across multiple star systems. Hidden shipyards multiplied. AI fleets bred themselves in silence, forging new units from captured wreckage. Bioweapons were unleashed upon entire ecosystems, not for conquest but for reminders. Species once complicit in Earth's destruction watched their homeworlds rot from within. Each planet became a monument to the cost of killing humans. For the Empire, war had always been about domination. For humans, war had become about memory. Their fleets did not march under banners or flags. They carried only silence until they struck, and when they did, they left messages carved into ruins. 7 billion. The number became a curse, a wound reopened across the galaxy. Everywhere the Empire looked, that number returned, on broken hulls, burned into planetary crusts, embedded in intercepted transmissions. 7 billion dead, 7 billion voices carried by the survivors who refused to be erased. The Imperial Senate demanded escalation. Armies were mobilized, fleets doubled, propaganda poured across the stars declaring that humanity was nothing but vermin striking in desperation. But every lie unraveled as more systems fell. Humans were not desperate. They were patient. They chose targets with terrifying precision, erasing infrastructure critical to the Empire's stability. Supply routes collapsed. Communication networks fractured. Rebellions long suppressed began to rise again, emboldened by the myth of human vengeance. Alien commanders begged for clarity. How many humans remained? Where were their strongholds? The Empire offered no answers. They did not know. Every probe sent into human space was destroyed, every spy captured and sent back as ash. The unknown became as deadly as the known. The humans thrived in secrecy, and secrecy became terror. Captured transmissions revealed the first direct words spoken by the surviving species. Not negotiation, not surrender, but a simple declaration. We are the echo of 7 billion. We are extinction returned. The galaxy understood then that humanity did not seek balance. They sought reversal. The Empire had tried to erase them. Humanity had decided to erase the Empire. The psychological war was devastating. Fleets abandoned battles after hearing human broadcasts of Earth's final screams. Colonists committed mass suicides rather than face the rumored tortures humans inflicted. Some alien species petitioned to break from the Empire, terrified of being targeted next. In their fear, they turned to the very enemy their empire had tried to exterminate. For the first time in galactic history, the most feared power was not the Empire, but the remnants of Earth. Humans struck not only with weapons but with memories. On the anniversary of Earth's burning, they destroyed an imperial capital world with the same precision used on Earth. They blackened skies, boiled seas, silenced billions, and when silence fell, they broadcast their only message: equal measure. This is justice. The Empire's arrogance collapsed under the weight of fear. Their fleets were vast, their technology superior, but none of it mattered. No doctrine could counter the irrational fury of a species with nothing left to lose. Where other species sought survival, humans sought vengeance. That difference changed the balance of the galaxy. Alliances shifted. Species long oppressed under imperial rule began to whisper of humans as liberators, or at least as inevitability. Fear turned to respect. Respect turned to reverence. Entire sects rose among alien populations, worshipping humanity as avatars of death, saints of vengeance who carried out justice where the Empire had failed. These cults spread faster than imperial suppression could control, and the idea of humanity became larger than humanity itself. The Empire saw it too late. Extermination had not ended humans. It had transformed them into an idea, and ideas could not be killed. Ideas infected. Ideas spread. The survivors had become symbols, and symbols were unstoppable.